So most Pokemon are based off of real creatures or common mythology that we are familiar with. For example, Vanillux looks like an ice cream, and Pidove is obviously based off of a pigeon. And of course, almost all of the legendary Pokemon can be connected with some sort of myth or belief in one way or another. However, with that being said, there are a lot of Pokemon that look completely unique and simply could not be based off of a real creature. Well, chances are they're probably still based off of something, we just have to dig around and find out exactly what it is. And that's exactly what today's video is going to be about. So today we're going to be looking at 10 creatures you did not know Pokemon were designed from. So the first Pokemon we're going to be looking at is Caterpie, and before you guys leave some rage comment saying that Caterpie is obviously based off of a caterpillar, I just want to say I know that, I'm not that stupid, don't worry. But I was pretty interested when I did a bit of research and stumbled upon the Eastern Tiger Swallowtail Caterpillar. And as you guys can see, this breed of caterpillar is very similar to Caterpie's design, and it's pretty obvious that Caterpie's design did stem from this caterpillar in particular. They both have orange things on their heads, they're both green, they both have eyes, and other things that are similar to each other. So, yeah. So, the next Pokemon that is based off of something you guys didn't know about is Magikarp. And Magikarp is based off of a fish called the yellow rockfish. As you guys can see, these things have pretty striking similarities. They're both massive fish. They both have fins. They're both orange. The Magikarp has those orange spikes on its back, the same as the yellow rockfish. They have spikes as well. They both have massive eyes that make them look stupid. I think the only difference is that Magikarp has those whiskers, and unfortunately the yellow rockfish isn't quite cool enough to cut it with the whiskers. But other than that, they're pretty much the same thing. So the next Pokemon we're going to be taking a look at is Vileplume, and I had absolutely no idea that Vileplume was actually designed from a real plant. I just thought it was like a blueberry with a flower growing on its head. But it turns out Vileplume's actually based off of a real plant called the Rafflesia arnaldi. I completely butchered that plant's name, but either way, this thing looks like a Vileplume, and I'm fairly certain that Vileplume's design is stemmed from whatever plant this is. Like, they both have massive flowers growing on it, and I bet underneath that flower, there will be a blueberry. I'm calling it. You can't see it in this picture, but I reckon there's a blueberry under that flower. But either way, I think it's pretty obvious that this plant is definitely what Vileplume's design is based from. So the next Pokemon we're going to be taking a look at is Shellos, and obviously Shellos is based off of a sea slug, but this sea slug in particular, which is called the Chromodis loki, I hope I got that name right. I'm honestly so bad with names, but this type of sea slug in particular is what Shellos is based off of. As you guys can see, there are very strong similarities between these two things. The sea slug is blue, Shellos can be blue. They both have the little like flaps on their body, and the only real difference is the eyes, and the sea slug isn't green on the bottom like Shellos, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Shellos is based off of this type of sea slug in particular. They're just way too similar for it not to be. The next Pokemon we're going to be looking at is Luvdisc, and I honestly thought Luvdisc could not possibly be based off of a real creature. But it turns out I'm wrong. Luvdisc is based off of the Kissing Gourami. As you guys can see, these two both have a lot of very strong similarities, in particular with the color scheme and the lips. The Kissing Gourami has those lovely lips, and so does Luvdisc. The only real difference between them is the actual shape of the Pokemon. Obviously, Luvdisc is in the shape of a heart, whilst the Kissing Gourami is just a normal fish shape. But you can definitely see that Luvdisc took some inspiration from this fish in particular in its design. The next Pokemon we're going to be looking at is Gorebyss, which is actually based off of the long-nosed Chimaera, or Chimaera. I'm not actually sure how to say this thing's name, which is a pretty common theme in this video now that I take a look at it. But either way, you can definitely see some pretty strong similarities between the two Pokemon. Gorebyss does look a little bit different from it, but the overall, like, body shape and design and just look of the two animals are very similar, so you can definitely see how Gorebyss was based off of this animal, but they did alter it quite a lot from the original animal. But either way, I still think it's pretty cool to see the animal that Gorebyss is actually based off of, because I did not know that Gorebyss was actually based off of a real creature. Like, what the fuck? So the next Pokemon we're going to be taking a look at is Poliwag, and obviously Poliwag is based off of a tadpole, but in particular it's based off of the translucent tadpole. And as you guys can see, this is where Poliwag gets its swelling pattern on its body from, because in translucent tadpoles you can see through their body, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's like its guts or something, but whatever it is, it makes a swirling pattern, and obviously Poliwag's design was inspired from these tadpoles in particular, which I think is pretty cool. Other than the swirling pattern though, there's not really too much in common, I guess. But I still thought this was really awesome, that Poliwag was actually based off of something so disgusting. But anyways, let's move on to the next Pokemon. So, the next Pokemon we're going to be taking a look at is Stunfisk, and Stunfisk's design is based off of a fish called the Stargazer. These two pretty much, like, have a lot in common. They have the same body shape. Stunfisk basically is a Stargazer, just with a less creepy face, pretty much. I actually cannot get over how creepy a Stargazer's face is. Just look at that. It makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm not gonna lie, but, I'm glad they made it look a little bit more nicer on Stunfisk, honestly. It looks pretty good compared to what the Stargazer's face looks like. But it's also pretty interesting to note that Stunfisk's electric typing may also stem from the fact that the Stargazer can actually paralyze you if you like get in contact with it. So that's pretty interesting how Stunfisk is based off the Stargazer, because I honestly never knew that fish like these actually existed. So that's pretty cool. So the next Pokemon we're going to be taking a look at is Dragalge, and honestly, I always thought that Dragalge was based off of a seahorse. Don't ask me why, I just never knew that sea dragons actually existed. But once you compare a sea dragon to the design of a Dragalge, you can clearly see that Dragalge's design definitely stemmed from a sea dragon's design. These things look exactly the same. Honestly, I'm surprised that Dragalge isn't the sea dragon Pokemon, because there's not really too much different from a Dragalge to a sea dragon, so I found this really interesting because I never knew that sea dragons existed. I'm sure most of you guys probably knew this, but I didn't, so hey, I just thought I'd put it on the list in case some of you guys are like me. But let's move on to the next Pokemon. So the final Pokemon we're going to be taking a look at is Krookodile, and Krookodile is based off of a crocodile called the gharial. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but as you guys can see, this thing definitely looks a lot like Krookodile, and you can tell that Krookodile's design was made specifically from this type of crocodile. As you guys can see, like the long thin nose is pretty much like gives it away. It's something that it's Krookodile's main feature really, so I found this pretty cool. Obviously, Krookodile's design has been adapted a lot from this, but it's still nice to know what animal Krookodile is actually based off of, because that's pretty cool, honestly. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up today's video. I put a lot of work into this video, so I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, make sure to hit that like button down below, and if you're new to the channel, feel free to check out some of my other videos. There will be annotations on the screen right now, and I definitely recommend you go and watch that video. And as well as that, you should definitely subscribe so you get updates for my future videos and stuff. So, yeah, I'll see you guys later.